All right. So welcome to What a Word is Worth, conversations with creative people on collective healing, a space for creative minds to speak about viable ways to heal the world through writing and other inventive mediums. This is your host, Marianela Medrano. I am the founder of Palabra Training Center, where words are giving us medicine. We are dedicated to creating a more compassionate and just world by training those who are invested and committed to making change possible. We offer writing workshops and mental wellness retreats to teach emotional and psychological freedom through mindfulness practices. We welcome people from all walks of life, financial means, and physical challenges to join us. If you would like to learn more about us or feel inspired to become a supporter, please visit palabracenter.org. And again, you're listening to What a Word is Worth. Today, my guest is Alexandria Peary. And I came across her work and I knew we had to have this conversation. But I'll tell you a little bit about her. She has 2 MFAs and a PhD, and she serves as a New Hampshire Poet Laureate. She is the author of 9 books, and I must say, she is the queen of titles. So here are some of her titles. Control, Bird, Alt, Delete. The next one is Prolific Moment, Theory and Practice of Mindfulness for Writing, and Battle of Silicon Valley at Daybreak. She is also the recipient of a 2020 Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship. Her work has received the Iowa Poetry Prize, Best of New Hampshire for Inspiring Artists. Thank God that we have things like that. Also, several Pushcarts and Best of the Net nominations and notable essay in Best American Nonfiction. She specializes in mindful writing and gives talks and workshops on the topic, including a webcast for National Novel Writing Month. She has an awesome TED Talk that if you have not listening to, please, I encourage you to do that. Her TED Talk is How Mindfulness Can Transform the Way You Write. She also is the 2021 keynote for the Secondary School Writing Centers Association. Alexandria is the architect and host of the popular webinar on mindful writing for the National Council of Teachers of English. So welcome, and I'm just going to jump right in, if that's okay with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here too. So thank you for inviting me.
Yes, so let's just jump right in. As I said, in your book, you talk about what Tara Bragg calls the trance of unworthiness, the not good enoughness that seems so ubiquitous these days. And in your TED Talk, you introduce Mara as a future-oriented, doubting writing demon. I guess he comes bearing the hindrances of writers, doubt, fear, and desire for fame. Now, my question is, can we as writers get to a point where Mara is no longer successful in distracting us? You write about 3 elements of awareness, demon, monkey, and river. Can you talk about that combination in your dealing with writers?
I'd be happy to. Okay. And I want to point out that Mara currently is right behind me. So I'm going to.
Yes, I see that.
This is my Mara, and this is my writing desk. So I was writing. I was writing 4:30 this morning, early this morning. So right below this computer. So I always keep my Mara behind me, right? And also when I teach, I can I'll say that, we'll talk about Mara and I'll move my head. Okay, so terrific questions. The first one I think I'll address is whether we can banish Mara from our writing lives. And I do want to say, I love how you put that about how it's a he, and they're this composite of all the self-doubt. You had a beautiful phrase just now. I should have written it down. But what I want to say about it is I actually don't want to banish Mara because for me, what I'm interested in helping my students and as a practitioner is to remain aware of the ever-changing present moment for writing. And Mara is bound to be part of that. I do not want to reject Mara out of hand. If that makes any sense. So what I'm all about is having people become conscious of Mara, because I think the vast majority of people writing, you don't even need to say Mara, they're just not aware of the fictional audiences that they import from the future or from the past and have sit at the edge of their desk. And it's as though they have to be perfect on the spot with their writing, writing for somebody who comes from usually the future. And that creature from the future, the teacher, the editor, the reader, is just looking for a final product, which the poor person who's writing hasn't had a chance to write because they're in the now and they're drafting. So I try not to banish her. I try to be aware of her all the time. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
And questions too. I should have written it. I'm going to write it down next time.
I'm agreeing so much with you. And I'm thinking of, this idea that Ken Wilber has kind of propelled, and it's the idea that when we are growing in the different dimensions, stages, what we're doing is transcending and including things. So I think what dealing with the writing demon Mara implies transcending and including our experiences. So in other words, any lived experience is part and parcel of the next moment. And our task is to transform the experience by amplifying and discerning what to highlight and what to leave behind. So I know for me as a writer, I used to write thinking about how my work was going to be received on demand, because one of my mentors used to say, well, who's your audience? With the very stern, like you must know. So I know how much I suffered when I was going through that, until then I become more conscious of the suffering and started doing that. So instead of, I guess what had happened to me was like I swallowed an inner critic, and that inner critic wouldn't let go of anything. So I was stuck in the writing, really stuck. Now, when I see my mind going there, I gently and sometimes very swiftly, but compassionately bring back to the awareness that this is what's happening. And as Tara Bragg says, these two belongs. So I'm agreeing with you that, yeah, it's not about, I guess in psychology, as a psychotherapist, what I tell people is we are full of parts. We are made of parts. And any given part is there to protect the self. So we don't want to kill the parts because that makes us incomplete. So tell me more how you use this notion in working with students.
Oh, I do this so much. So for one, I just want to say about the audience, I too have suffered in the past, and I'm so glad you used the word suffering, because a lot of people think writing, it's not suffering, it's such a heavy word, but indeed I think it is, because all of us literate beings, since we were little kids, we've had judgment heaped on our writing. And I don't know about you, I meet so many people out in the world who doubt themselves so much as writers, even people you'd be surprised by, so that really bothers me, because I think that they're deprived of this powerful self-expression and real joy in life because they're fogged over by these fears. But so what I do with students, first off, I say to them, we need to recognize that these audience demons or ghosts, and some of them are not exactly so polarized as like bad. They're a mixed bag, right? But they're completely products of our internal rhetoric, how we're talking to ourselves. So if I have one in my room while I'm writing, there's no one physically in my writing room with me. It's a fictional creature that I'm making up, that I'm acting as though I'm performing, as though public speaking. I can't, we're public speaking right now, and so you can't take words back and say, "Oh, I didn't like that." We act as though our writing is real-time performance when it's not. So to get students aware first of their embodiment and noticing the delightful vacancy, it's not a lonely thing, it's just a beautiful thing. Solitude, physical solitude around them when they're writing, to really occupy the writing moment, be present, right? There are a whole host of gestures to that. And then also recognizing the kind of self-talk we're doing to create those audience demons. So one of my favorite assignments, I love this, I do this with grad students, undergrad, and in the community, is I have people do a caricature, like when you go to the mall and somebody draws you, only it's verbal, and it's of an audience demon they carry around. And so I walk them through these prompts, and they make them have a huge head and little body and really exaggerated. I have them at some point envision a little critic on their critic's shoulder, in imagination, what did that person say to their big demon? And then we do it, and they all think it's a lot of fun. This is kind of fun, haha. But then afterwards, we pull out some details, physical or clothing, and I have them free write privately, like, okay, so you said this person has a bulbous nose, right? But what might that actually represent to you unconsciously here, or what, so we pursue these different things, and also just to realize that these creatures we're making up in our head. And then the other thing about them too is I often talk to students about taking charge of the material means by which they write. So if you write in a dollar store notebook with magic markers and you're writing for Oxford University Press for something, you're never going to hand that notebook, that dollar store notebook with pink magic marker handwriting in it, to an editor. So you're actually physically buying time and separation from people. So we talk about things like that. We do a lot of disposable writing.
I love that preambling, that action, the writing is like, it's the rehearsal. So no need to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really like that.
We do talk. I've gotten better over the years at this, because at first because I had my own suffering and problems in school, and I had things I resented and felt sad by. So it was very polarized at first for me, right? But these days, a little more subtle. I try to match it now with loving kindness meditation for writers class, because I also want us to acknowledge the ghosts who are imaginary still, but the teachers and readers who are friends or loved ones who really actually, they bring them into the present moment, and they're still ghosts, but they help us.
Yeah, I want you to unpack that one more. I love how your exercises, the two that you mentioned, move from the mind into the body, and it was like what I was seeing was that circular motion of going mind body. I mean, the mind is part of the body, but we tend to kind of set tent there and forget the body, right? So I like that, and I want you to go more into two things. In your TED talk, you talk about the three elements I mentioned: the demon, the monkey, and then the river. So go more into how the monkey can take us to the river.
Okay, I forgot that you asked that. All right, so what I say in that talk is that we have these demons, and I have on the screen this kind of scary Mara image, right? And we have these demons, and they make us doubt ourselves. So they're our harshest critics that we bring in from the future or the past, right? Do you mind if I knock on the wall for something? Because somebody's pounding on the other. Are we?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to mute myself for a nanosecond, okay? Okay, so back to that. So we have the Mara, and then once people become a little aware that they're having these imaginary conversations, I think it downgrades to a monkey, and a monkey is, so it's not a demon. It's just distractible, and it's trying to distract us, and it's trying to, all of a sudden, changing the litter box is more interesting than writing, or checking your phone, that kind of thing, and it's just jumping around. It just takes, again, as I mentioned in that talk, and like I say, the Buddha put his palm to the ground, and just watching the breath, or making contact with your desk with your palm, anything, or on your knees, just noticing again that monkey, he may be a little less scary than the demon, right? But it's a creature of our self-talk, it's distraction. And then lastly, I say, after that, it dissolves even further, because all of this is constructed on our self-talk, and it dissolves into a river of language. And this is why I tell people, I say, I've done this for a long time, teach writing. I'm very passionate about it. I say, I've taught a lot of different people, and everybody can write beautiful, powerful things, if you can just, notice this ongoing river of language that's almost always in our minds, with detachment, no premature editing, no sorting, just watch what arises, because great things are going to float by, and it'll happen very rapidly, actually, if we're actually perceptive enough and seeing what's happening, looking at it, hearing our language, but not prematurely discarding any of it, watching it float by. So that's what I mean by the river. It's that raw internal rhetoric that's not coalescing around a demon or a distractible little monkey trying to distract us,
Yeah, and it feels so releasing, right? That's the idea, to really invite people to experiment with freedom. Like, we don't have to be trapped. We don't have to be imprisoned in the mind. We can navigate into the river of the body, I said. This idea of embodied writing or somatic writing, right? Like, how much are those coalescing with your mindful writing?
Yeah, so in my grad class, we teach a really subtle, beautiful theory book called Felt Sense by Sandra.
Yes,
Boyle.
of course.
They love that, so that kind of embodied knowledge. We do all kinds of activities with nonverbal mind waves, sort of the fleeting nonverbal impulses and sensations around the activity of writing. I want students, it's the hardest part of the class I teach is nonverbal and verbal emptiness, just because they think, it's a writing class, why would I want to be nonverbal or in emptiness? But just getting them to have that sense that, you're more than your words, we're simply more than our words. We're a physical state, and form and formlessness, just noticing the nonverbal sensations. I love what you said a moment ago about it being a circle, the mind and the body, mind and the body. I think that's so important to students. I mean, we never ask our students to, at least I was never asked, maybe once, how are you physically when you write? What do you, and also affectively. So how are you physically when you write, but also how are you doing emotionally, and not just about the content of what you're writing, but the act of writing. How does it make a person feel? And to acknowledge that's super important. And what you said a second ago about the freedom, that river, it's so formless. It should be really formless, so-called disorganized and messy. And my students frequently have a hard time with that. They think, they still turn in things that are, polished. I say, no, it's okay. It's a form of self-respect to step away from worries about organizing for other people all the time, and to just track, like in a Carl Rogers sense, just notice what's going on internally. It's a form of healing, that kind
The
of thing.
ultimate healing, I will say,
Yes.
my solidifying, the healing process for me, which is not done yet, but the me grasping came actually when I was doing my PhD, and one of my professors, Rosemary Anderson, was the one who created embodied writing. And when she started talking to us and saying, look, she basically said, I got bored of reading these constricted, square boxed writing from students. Like she was yawning all the time. So she said, I have to help them. So she created embodied writing, which is a writing that is inviting you to write from the neck down. So, her giving us permission to just be messy and also to linger in the body, to use the wisdom of the body to express ourselves, changed my whole perspective. I mean, my whole, experience with my education. It was a PhD in transpersonal psychology, where the indigenous way of learning was more prevalent than the Western, way of learning. So the healing that comes with that giving permission, allowing ourselves. But then I want to go, taking that, I want you to think a little bit and to share with us, because at the heart of this podcast is the pursuit of collective healing from collective inherited trauma at many levels, right? We have the small trauma, the capital T trauma. Talk to us. What are some ways in which you handle trauma when you're facilitating mindful writing? Because we know that when we stop, when we quiet down, a lot comes up. It's like this, river of difficult emotions comes up. So when you're doing that, how do you help people?
Well, okay, so I have to say, as a writing professor, I feel I can't answer that question because I just, I feel like I was being irresponsible, because I'm not trained in that at all. I can only speak, I'm not, but I can only speak what I do on a human level with, you know what I mean? Because I can't speak professionally about that. I want to say though, before I get to that, I love the end of your TEDx talk. You talked about the move between collective and community. And I really, really appreciated how you connected that to interconnection, non-detachment.
Right. And the interbeing, that Thich Nhat Hanh talks about. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, I guess, as a, in my field, I'll just be very plain spoken. In my field, if someone asks us a question about how we handle trauma in the classroom, it's not an easy question for me to answer, because I'd be like asking about dentistry for me. I can't. I can only say what I can do if you don't mind.
What do you do? What do you do when it shows up?
Yeah, when students have an affective experience to either meditating or writing. First, meditating, I have all sorts of people in my class, including, vets and so, I have told them that when I first started meditating seriously, I felt like I was suffocating. I would just sit there and my heart was pounding. I was so anxious. I felt like I was suffocating. And to just be kind to yourself when these things are happening. A lot of leeway to students. If they're going through something, we talk through it. I can see in their writing, I write a letter to them each time they turn in something to me. But I think, I'm sure maybe some of the people who maybe drop out of the class, maybe they've got something going on and they just disconnect. My honest, I don't know if I'm fooling myself or what here, but my honest impression is that because I give my students a lot of trustful freedom to do,
Wow.
even on the grading level, and we don't have to get into
Mhm.
that, it sounds too academic, but they really know that they can experiment, I think, in an environment of safety in my classroom. So when they show me something, say a caricature of a tricky audience, or we have a backpack of perfectionism assignment, where they envision themselves with a backpack, and it's not a real it's a metaphor, and what happens as they move about their writing experiences, people bring up stuff, and they seem like they're okay with it. They really do. I think they do.
Yeah.
I could, like I said, I'm not really sure how to answer that, because I feel.
I think you've been very humble, but what I'm thinking is just hearing and reading you.
Mm,
I'm thinking you have developed the art of witnessing, of presencing, of holding people, right, in their struggles. And that is healing in itself.
yeah, but I have thought that perhaps there are people who whatever we're doing stimulates things that are just too much,
Mhm,
It probably
mhm.
has happened.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
it
Yeah.
probably has.
Well, and there is a study conducted by the Berkeley Institute for the Future of Young Americans,
Mm,
and it shows that half of the millennials that were interviewed reported feeling overwhelming anxiety. So that's there, right? Like, forget about very specific situations, but being, and living through a pandemic has probably exacerbated these things. The study also indicates that 17% of young adults were already bearing a diagnosis of anxiety. And a lot of them were in treatment. So that's a number that's pretty high, right? Now, we know that the pandemic, again, has highlighted inequalities, and that's a source of anxiety. The students also, and I'm thinking, you teach the first year course still, or you
No,
don't do it
no, I
anymore?
used to. I teach.
Mhm.
I teach 200-300 in grad students.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because what I'm thinking is,
yeah.
for students, going to college is naturally a source of anxiety
Mm,
due to the transitioning nature of it. And for some of them, and probably most of them, they're transitioning from being sheltered in the family to being on their own. So I guess another curiosity I have, going back to, what could be traumatic, is, have you noticed, is Mara holding different things in her necklace, depending on gender, psychosocial, and racial contexts?
That is a lovely question, and I'm going to have to ponder that in the future. That's a
Yeah.
lovely question. I love how you put it too with the necklace. Highly likely, I would say, highly likely.
Yeah. That is very different, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So going back then, I guess, I don't know, but the idea of getting people to access the flowing river, it's healing on itself. And yes, I am imagining that people with complex histories are the ones who might leave your class. I mean, that happens. It happens in classrooms. It happens in therapeutic settings. We cannot reach everyone. So, but okay, so those who stay, how do you help them stay connected to the forever flowing river within? How do we remain inventive in a prolific moment, as you said?
Yeah, and I do want to say very few students leave my class. I'm just thinking about the 1 or 2 times. Yeah, all semester long. All semester long, we talk about various strategies because that's a big deal in the class. That every moment's inventive, potentially prolific. Every moment you can create, and so there's a whole host of strategies to do that. So like in my classes, both levels actually, we spend a lot of the semester going through what I call the mindful rhetorical toolkits. So normally in classes, like you were talking about your previous education before you had that wonderful teacher with the embodiment, the audience, right? So most writing classes talk about a certain set audience, timeliness, that kind of thing, revision, feedback, etc. Right? But with mindful writing, something completely different happens. You get a whole different set of toolkits that come up. So for instance, we suddenly become aware of our internal rhetoric, not just our intrapersonal rhetoric, or our intrapersonal, not the interpersonal. Become aware of that. That's one toolkit that comes up. There's the embodiment that comes up. With internal rhetoric, it's sort of a two-pronged thing. One is that you notice the monkey mind, but the other is that you notice the preconceptions that you are fostering about your writing ability, task specific or a genre in general. So in other words, what people are weighing down the moment with about their writing, whether it's the poem they're working on right now or poetry in general. And you also notice embodiment and that kind of thing. Yeah, so these different toolkits. So a lot of the semester we go through these, and I think I'm forgetting one. Oh, and how could I? The other one is impermanence. I've got
that one.
Couple of cats now flinging their bodies at the door over here. I'm wondering, this is a little bizarre, right? I don't know if you can hear the loud banging. It's a bunch of cats flinging their bodies at the door.
Talking about embodiment, huh?
About embodiment, okay. Anyway, so impermanence. So twice during the semester with the undergrad, we cycle through all those different terms, and then we come to their final, which, it's December now, so they're working on it. And I show them this inventive strategy, which is called moment tracking, where they constantly ask themselves, what's on my mind right now about X topic, right? Oh, I should tell you, I think you'll love this. I'll tell you the topic in a second, but the topic is, I think, pretty cool. So what's on my mind about this topic now? What's on my mind about this topic now? And I ask them to be very fragmentary and just enter a writing moment, 7 to 12 seconds. What's on my mind right now about this? And they just jot it down again without worrying about organization or will it make sense to anybody? It doesn't matter. So, and we keep doing that. Even at later stages in that project, I'll ask them to return, what's on your mind right now? What's on your mind right now? What's on your mind? So you're generating information because, as I'm pointing out to them, everything is always shifting, So I want to say about the impermanence thing, that's so hard to teach undergrads with writing, but I do have this little gimmick idea, which I think it's pretty funny. They come in one day with something that's due, right? So X is due. And I'll have them do a private free write, how are you feeling about this piece, right? You turned it in today, you emailed it to me, so they're privately free writing. And so they're probably thinking, I'm a little stressed because of grade or, what's she gonna think? That kind of normal stuff, right? And then I say to them, okay, I want you to watch your breathing and I'm gonna say something to you. So just watch your breathing. I'm going to say something and watch your mind waves, how you physically react, try to record it in the free writing, but also record any mind weeds, images, preconceptions, storylines that arise to what I say to you. So they watch their breathing and then they're free writing. And then I say to them, we're going to send out that piece for publication right now. And then, like, you can tell the adrenaline's, because these are not English majors for the most part. These are from all over campus. You can tell the adrenaline's like there's probably a whole bunch of curse words floating and all kinds of stuff, right? And so I'm very respectful to the students. So if they don't literally want to do it by the end of class, they don't want to press that button for send, I will never make anybody do that. But they don't know that until the last minute, right? So I show them how to do the cover letter, where to send it out. And then I say, for those of us who do want to press that return button, go ahead, but it's okay right now if you want to delete and get rid of this whole thing. And about 50% of them do, and quite a few get published. But so what's cool though is I say to them, I say, okay, so you thought that assignment was pretty static, right? The one you came to class with, you're done. I mean, it's not going to fluctuate. Your affect towards it, your ideas towards it are not going to change. It's done. Even though I've often told them that with publication, it seems like you're putting something in amber and it's done, like an ant or something, right? But it's for writers, when we read our work at readings or pick it up, it's always shifting and changing. So I say, now do a private free write. And what's changed about you and your piece since you came into class today? And whatever it is, you may loathe it more. I don't know, whatever's going on in somebody's mind, right? It's your private, the note itself is private, but I say, do you see how much change has happened in 45 minutes to that solid piece? So activities like that. I did want to tell you, I think you'll really like this project we work on. I'm doing it this semester with both grad and undergrad, and I have them come up with a mantra, a writing mantra, short. I walk them through all the rhetoric behind designing one. So they come up with one that it has to be about writing and ideally embodies one of the rhetorical tools or concepts we've been talking about all semester long. But it's theirs. It's got to mean something to them. If it doesn't mean anything to me, it doesn't matter, right? They come up with their mantra and then they write an essay exploring, its connections to the course, because it is a course, but also showing themselves using the mantra to write the paper. And then also visualizing, future usages of the mantra and all kinds of things like that. And I love it. And that's an assignment where, right now they're 3/4 of the way done because it's December. Both classes are pretty into it right now. And I'll still have them go back, retreat to pre-writing and early writing and say, okay, what's on your mind right now? What's on your mind right now about this as a relation to monkey mind? What's on your mind right now? What's on your mind right now? And I tell them when I wrote Prolific Moment, I'm very organized, but I'm just going to say that about 2 hours before I sent it to the publisher, I thought, I'm not happy with something. I'm just not happy. And 2 years of working on that book back to back, but I thought to myself, I'm just not happy with this particular. And so, but what was it, an hour or so, I free wrote a huge section of it and fixed it. I don't think anybody would be able to know. Right. And I sent it, but I was like to them, like, even that late stage moment where you think, well, you're about to send it to your teacher, your boss, your editor, it can still shift and change if you're noticing truthfully what's arising in the mind. And I mean, that's what keeps us excited as writers and people.
Absolutely.
We're not static. We're not static.
And it's the playing with impermanence is right there, right in that moment. And as you are saying, I mean, I'm fascinated with all the experiences that your students are going through. And I'm also, as you're speaking, I'm like, yeah, healing. And at the heart of this is the development of emotional intelligence, which is this constant, understanding the intrapersonal and how it connects to the interpersonal. How, I used to have a teacher who recently died, Terry Patton. He wrote a book, The New Republic of the Heart. And he was, his work was so much about helping us move from me to you to we, right? So that idea of cycling from the different dimensions of being.
What was his name again? What was his name?
Terry Patton. And the book is A New Republic of the Heart. He just unfortunately passed on last month in November. But I think what I'm hearing in your I mean, the more I know you and the more I read about what you're doing, the more fascinated and affirm I feel in the work I do and that we're doing out there. So I have one last question for you. One of the things, again, that Terry used to keep us really on track was identifying our personal edge You know, that thing that when you go, it's like, oh, I either gonna have to turn around or take the big jump. What are you working on right now that might be awakening Mara in a different form? Or have you gotten to a place where Mara no longer has a fiesta in your mind?
That's a wonderful question. I do have an answer. I'm just trying to figure out if I'm comfortable saying it. I think I am. So I had such a horrible writer's block after my first grad experience. I mean, I was like, I treated myself so badly. You know, I was like, my model was Martha Graham, the dancer. I just had my knees on the wood floor and and I had issues like crazy because I was trying to discipline myself. Anyway, so for years I struggled. And that's why I'm so devoted to what I do now, because in general, I'm in love with my writing. I'm in love with your writing. I'm in love with everybody's writing. I just love it. And it's when I come to the desk, even at 4:30 in the morning, you know, I just feel so happy. It's my grace time, you know, I just love it. And so, but then I'm aware when I say that to people who are in a writer's block class that they want to kill me, right? So what I've always said is that the last few years, I have really lots of bad moments. I have tons of harsh rejections and things that are said, and for sure, and really bad moments. But I've really liked over the past few years those moments, because I could train to lean in and not to really remember what it felt like to be one of my students and be in their boat, you know, to feel that anxiety and that stress, and because I wanted to remain in touch with it. So I was always able to navigate around it. But my current project, that's my edge.
That's your edge.
Yeah. But I think recently, the last few weeks, I've been, yeah. So I don't know if I can say any more. So
okay, that's okay. We'll take it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I don't know how to say it. I won't. I guess I can't say it. But I will say that I tell my students this last week, grad students, that, you know, if maybe one needs to, as a mindful writer, everything's up for grabs, right?
Yeah.
And no state is ever.
Yeah.
No state is ever solid, nothing.
Right.
So it fluctuates. And
and it's not a tragedy. That's the good thing.
if I may, there's one thing I can say about that edge, if I may, if it's okay.
Yes.
I was working with them in class because I write with my students, and I realized that whatever worry I had about this particular endeavor I'm on it was very monolithic, a static image. And I realized how silly I was being, because all around me, the project I'm working on is fluctuating. It's going all over the place. It's this crazy, interactive, multifaceted thing that static fear has no competition with. It's just not as interesting as all that stuff. It's just not as vibrant. It's not as alive. The fear is not. It's not. It's this cookie cutter, one-dimensional thing. And when I realized that, I don't know. It was quite of a moment of relief for me while I was working with my students last week. So, but I've just got to accept that if it's not able to happen, then it's not able to happen. It's just the way clinging to anything, I've got to let go of it. Just got to let go of it.
Right.
You know?
It's just how we roll sometimes.
Exactly.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For giving us the opportunity to chat about these things. So, and thank you, listeners. You are listening to What a Word is Worth. You can access today's interview at Anchor. And if you are interested, hit the subscribe button in your podcast app. And also, if you found our program beneficial, leave us a review. And stay in touch, because we will continue bringing speakers of the caliber of the one that we had today. Thank you all.